Tango 1 at the top. We're at pop-up vehicle. 10-4, Tango 1. You have control. Tango 1 copy. Stand by. Stand by.
Integrity, passion, resilience. That's what this place was built on. That's what our community is founded on. Don't act like the example, just be the example. This is the home of the greatest fitness community in the world. We're trying to create strong, able bodies, resilient to injury with a gas tank to get shit done. If there's one thing from this podcast, it's about taking immediate action, find the problem, fix the problem. This is your opportunity. It's either a hell yes or a fuck no. It's that simple. You're doing that. The Tango 1 podcast. Now is the time to take action. Now's the time to do more and be more.
I bring everybody together like teams, and we did. So today was a 45-minute ski relay, and so like I ski, you ski, and in between we just do some stuff to keep people busy. And honestly, but at the end, the last 5 minutes of that 45-minute relay is intense. Like people, like you can see, and it's like. It's not like people who play D1 ball or, you know, SWAT guys. It's like people who are like working in an office and like maybe didn't even play sports growing up, and they are like, who's winning? Like they're coming over to our machine to see who's, and it came down to like 40 meters today, and like when it's done, it's like, wow. And it's like, you know, like it's just like there was like one girl here, she's 20. There's like somebody who was probably in the 50s, and they're like equally as engaged. And like you're right, the competition part of that just fires people up. And you left here, even my team freaking lost. My hamstring's still messed up, but but you're leaving high fives and like totally different thing. So everybody, welcome to the Tango 1 podcast. We're getting up there. We're getting closer and closer to episode 100. Today, I am super pumped to have a new guest that I've been waiting to get on here for a while. We've been talking. I got Chris Rwabukamba, and he is a refugee from Rwanda that grew up in the West End. So that's going to bring up a lot of conversations for you and I, because I spent the majority of my career, a good chunk of my career, working out in the West End. But man, from there to earn a full ride scholarship to Duke, played ball here at Herman, right? And then at Duke, he was a two-time captain, two-time All-Academic in the ACC, four-time honor roll, and earned his master's there. Then he went on to play 8 years in the CFL, 7 as a starter, and he still has his knees, as I can see, and and still moves pretty well. He comes with heavy praise from one of our favorite and most listened to and most been on the podcast a ton of times. Everybody knows Coach Jimmy Mack, one of my favorite guys. Chris and I just spent 20 minutes talking about how much we love Jimmy Mack. So I know he's listening to this one, so that should make him happy. We are not going to praise you on air, though, Jimmy. That's going to be the end of it. So thanks for coming on the show today, Chris.
Thank you for having me, Tony. It's a great pleasure to be here.
So today we want to talk about, we'll see where it goes, man. I really have no idea. You and I had a 30-minute conversation on the phone, and then we just met each other 20 minutes ago for the first time. But I'm a big Windsor sports fan, so I kind of followed your career loosely, and I was complaining about the lack of acknowledgement that football, basketball, basically anything outside of like the Windsor Spitfire get around here, because there's so many great local athletes that people really probably didn't hear about. And so I want to talk about football, sports, of course. We'll probably dive deeper into some other topics, and then growing up in a hard neighborhood to all the way to like Duke, and I mean not even just the athlete part, like ACC all academic. That's wild, man. So like, wherever you want to start, let's talk about that. Your family's from Rwanda, and how did you guys get here? Let's start from the top and see where it goes, man.
We'll start from the top. I was born in Kigali, Rwanda, and I was fortunate enough at a young age where my dad moved to the U.S. In 1989. I was born in 1987, and as soon as we moved to the U.S., we kind of already knew that the genocide was coming. We're fortunate enough to have the resources to be able to get a plane ticket and get out of there before the genocide actually happened. And for people that might not know, there was a huge genocide in 1994 between two majority ethnic groups, the Tutsis and the Hutus. And I was a Tutsi, which was the lower class, but I mean, it was the upper class, but it was also the class that was discriminated against, and that the acts of genocide happened against. So in 1989,
it was this. Those are two tribes.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So you like the intellectual stuff. My father's a huge reader.
Yes.
And I told you this briefly on the phone, and I don't know if I was in grade school or high school. I'm way older than you, obviously. and he told me to do a project on this, and I'm like, Dad, why is nobody talking about this in the media?
Yes.
And it was like, you didn't hear about it, man. And I'm doing this project, so it was 2 tribes. And what was the riff? What was the division that was causing the violence? I mean, I'm sure that's there, but maybe like just a little overflow of that to help people out.
Absolutely, yeah. That's a great question. So, I mean,
why is everybody so mad at each
yeah,
other? Jeez,
well,
to
so
do that.
colonization happened in the early 60s. And back then, there wasn't really as much as of a divide. Where just people were living together. But when the Europeans came, settled, first was Germany, then was Belgium. They came into Rwanda. They kind of separated the two tribes. It's one of the tactics that they did throughout Africa was, divide and conquer. They put the 2 tribes against each other, and they basically said, "You guys are the majority, the Hutus. Why do the Tutsis have majority of the power?" So that kind of started a rift. Right. You have that backing. You get some arms from your European counterparts. You start taking by force power back into the Hutus' hands. So there's been, I guess, tribal tough blood between both tribes for 30, 40 years. In 1993, there was a Hutu president. His airplane got shot down. And when he got shot down, on the airwaves was propaganda of, hey, this is Tutsis doing on us. They want to regain control. And unfortunately, when you have years of teaching people and brainwashing them to hate a certain tribe, now this gives you a reason to act the way you do. So that kind of translated to obviously a huge genocide. And in 100 days, about 800,000 to 1 million people died. Rwanda is like the size of the state of Maryland. So it's a small country. 9 million people. So you could think about it. If this 15% of the populations are Tutsis and you kill 800,000, you almost killed the whole entire race.
Oh my God.
So
800,000
in 100 days. And it was like, and there was moderate Hutus too that were killed. And essentially they just went around and said, hey, show me your identity card. Tony, what are you? Oh, you're Hutu, you're good. You're Tutsi? Oh, you're gonna die. And that's, they describe a genocide as when you're killing women and children as well. So it's not just like
it's not just
civil war.
or
Civil war. You're going after and trying to exterminate that whole race. So we're fortunate to get out of there from a young age. Many of my cousins, my uncles, my aunts, my grandparents were all killed in the genocide. I was so young when I left that I wasn't able to fully understand growing up, but as I got older and I started looking back into my history, I started to better understand the magnitude of what happened, and how hard it was for my mom, being in a different culture and seeing her parents pass away and killed in her younger siblings. She was the second oldest of 15, so there's only 5 left. Both my parents ended up passing away in Canada, but all that that weight on her and having to carry that and having 2 young children and explaining that, and it was very tough, but it was very, I'm very grateful for the opportunity to be in Canada. Canada's given our country, our family great opportunity. And I love Canada, I love the US, and I love Rwanda too. And it's changed drastically since those times. It's one of the economic wonders. Our president, Kagame, has been there for, 20 plus years, and he's rebranded Rwanda. Now you can't even say Hutu and Tutsi out in public.
Really?
Yes, you're just Rwandan. And I went back in 2013. There's palm trees. It's very clean. There's a lot of business. It's ranked the 2nd best country in Africa to do business. So it's changed quickly. We use a lot of foreign aid to kind of reinvest into the country. Tourism is huge. I have plenty of family still there. So it's a place that I would, obviously in the future frequently visit. So that's kind of the background. The reason why there wasn't much publicity, to your point. So in 1993, the movie Black Hawk Down was on Somalia.
Right.
So U.S. troops went into Somalia and then obviously got captured. Plane got shut down. Troops got captured, and held hostage. Bill Clinton at the time was the president, and when that happened, and the embarrassment that the U.S. felt, because they couldn't really attack they didn't know the region well enough. They didn't understand what was really going on. They didn't understand the inner politics. So they're seeing their 2 hostages being held, and it's a Hollywood movie, so this easily can be pulled up. But they were like, listen, we're not going in right away without fully understanding what's going on and the magnitude of the inner conflicts in these countries. Unfortunately for Rwanda, we're the second. We had the genocide in '94. Black Hawk Down is '93. So it's like many European allies were very hesitant to go into Rwanda right away, and that obviously created very little media attention, and only till it got to the point where it's like there's dead bodies everywhere. Right. And there's a few Hollywood movies. Hotel Rwanda is one of them.
Right.
Cheeto. Don Cheeto.
Yep.
Yes. So Sometimes in April is another one. Great movie on it. But it's a very, very tough history, and we're proud. I'm proud to be Rwandan and how we rebuilt that. And there's many Rwandans that go back and live in Rwanda and have a place there and continue to kind of be proud of the country and rebuild it.
Wow. So your family comes and landed, like, this sounds bad, on the boat? Did you come on an airplane? Like,
yeah, we came on an airplane.
Came into Toronto, I would assume?
No, so we came to North Carolina. So my dad was a university.
Not what I would have thought.
Yeah,
okay.
Perfect. So my dad was, so his, my dad's really good friend was in North Carolina as well. He was going to school there. He went to school. So my dad went to culinary school in North Carolina as well. So because he was already in the U.S., we were able to fly in and see him. And because he was already established, he had a place to live, he can take his family.
Right.
So we came in 1990. He was there in 1989. So we came a year after. And that allowed us, because like I was saying, we had the resources to get a plane ticket. Not everybody from Rwanda had that luxury.
Right, or everybody would have escaped.
Yeah, exactly.
Sure, right?
Yeah. And all my cousins that were like, so my sister and I are the two oldest cousins now, still alive. Our two older cousins passed away. And the ones that were there, we had many younger ones that survived by fleeing to neighboring countries, staying in refugee camps, and just really seeing people, like dead bodies and fleeing for their lives. Traumatic
Your mom and
things.
dad must have held so much guilt for having the resources. Like,
yes,
they even have resources to get you, but they can't get out.
Yeah,
like,
and survivor guilt was a thing. My mom tried to get some of her younger siblings to come across, and they were saying like, no way, like, it's not that big of a deal, right? But it's like when it hits, it's like kind of like, if people on the east side come and try to kill everybody in Amherstburg, it's like if it hits real quick, everybody's fleeing now, right?
Don't come to my house.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure you'd be.
I'm strangely ready.
Yeah,
anyway.
You are very prepared, but a lot of people will not be.
Right.
And I think that's kind of what happened. And unfortunately, the people that did survive, some of them were, obviously regretful that they didn't take that. And my mom was, she dealt with depression and many mental health issues because of that, because of her people dying, her not being able to save her younger siblings, the guilt, the survival guilt of like having all these resources and not being able to share it with all her family. So it was tough for me to see, but it was also, it allowed me to mature very quick, and understand how fortunate I was and how many blessings I was fortunate to have.
Right.
And I try to, use some of that to every day. I try to maximize my day and go and push the envelope as much as I can, because I've been given this such a great opportunity. Who knows where I would have been if our family stayed in Rwanda, right? Yeah. Chances are against us, I would say. So, and I have friends that survived. My friend Joe Uezu, he survived the genocide, went to Herman with me, lives in BC now, but he has like war wounds. Like he has knife marks on his back, and he saw his aunt got killed right and landed on top of him. Like, he took off running, and it was just like very, very traumatic. And he has not been back to Rwanda since, but I'm trying to convince him to come back because it's very different. But like, as you can imagine, the PTSD from that experience and seeing that much depth and people that died that were so close to you is, I don't blame him for not coming back, but I feel like it's one of those things that fears that he will have to overcome.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I mean that's how they treat PTSD, is to relive and recount and revisit. And when I had some issues and I went, that was part of, like, the doctor's like, I need you to start driving through those neighborhoods. I'm like, what are you driving? I'm not even a cop anymore. Now I'm driving through these neighborhoods. It's like, just drive through your neighborhoods on the way into appointments, or like retell these things. So I think you do hit it right. It is important for your friend to, if it is bothering, maybe it doesn't bother him.
Yeah.
I doubt it,
Yeah.
but maybe it doesn't, right? And to go and revisit those things. So how did you get from the States?
Yeah, so my father got sick soon after. So we lived in North Carolina for 2 years. We moved up to Michigan, Highland Park, which is Detroit, right outside of Detroit. And while he was sick, he was very weak. He had cancer, and my mother couldn't speak English at the time. So like, she's going to doctor visits, and we can't afford the bill. We can't she's like, what is going on, right? And we ended up obviously learning about there was a Rwandan community, a very small one in Windsor. Somehow she got wind of that, so we moved to Windsor, and obviously he was able to get some of the help he needed, but it was too late in his cancer process. He passed away shortly after. So I was 6 years old when my dad died, March of '93.
Oh man,
so
that's tough too.
Yeah, I mean,
honestly.
that was So for me, I'm just like,
Whirlwind.
like a kid just trying to take it all in, and also just like comprehend what's really going on. And I couldn't at the time. I remember when my dad passed away, I didn't even cry because he was in the U.S. and then he was sick, and then it was like I didn't develop much of a relationship with him because of his cancer, and because he moved from Rwanda to North Carolina, and I was always with my mom. So as we moved to Windsor, we settled in on Peter Street first in the West End, and then we moved to Bloomfield, public housing there, 3469, shortly after. And my mom was able to obviously speak French to some of the workers and doctors and stuff, and people can translate and explain to her, and she ended up passing away. But she then started to understand that this is where she'll have to kind of restart her life. We settled in the West End. She had to go back to high school. She was a principal in Africa, but she had to go back to high school and learn ESL, take ESL classes at Forster, which is straight down the street.
Right, it's right, literally around the corner.
Yeah, right around the corner. And it was funny because when we got older, I'm like, Mom, like, the first winter, what did you think? Like, coming from Rwanda, this country's right on the equator. It's like obviously warm year round. Now you're seeing snow, and it's like you got to get a coat, you got to get this, and it's like how are you managing all these life changes so quickly? How are you adapting to this new life? So all those things, all those struggles, I saw my mom firsthand go through those things, and it was I still didn't understand because I was so young. My sister was a little bit older, but I was able to still view it and still remember it. So then I grew up in the West End till I was 6 for 10 years. So my sister ended up going to Forster. I went to Herman. Sports saved my life, or helped shape my life tremendously.
I think we live in a very like Windsor. People like me, actually, people like Irv. We want to, I mean, Irv's, I'm sure your grandfather was an immigrant if your parents were not. I know we're all immigrants, but my grandfather came over on the boat. I said the boat, right? Yeah. He actually came on the boat, and I'm sure Irv's did. But going to Villanova, living in LaSalle, we were not. My father was a police officer, and he was in charge of the Sandwich Town Station forever. Wow. And the guys who ran the Stag worked directly for him and are still good friends of his, and actually references of mine to get on the police department. But anyways, the West End runs in our blood, and my dad grew up in a very hard neighborhood with, my dad's brother was in jail in Kingston almost his whole life.
Wow.
My dad's uncle was arrested for murder. Like, my dad's family grew up hard.
Wow.
So we had my dad had this open-mindedness for people that I was very lucky to be around. But I feel like a lot of people, in this gym and stuff, just do not know what exists in this city. And the Bloomfield projects, I have spent hours and hours and hours of my career in there, and St. Joe's right around the corner, Peter Street.
Yes.
It's rough, man, and it is rough, and not by choice for a lot of families. Some families, like yours, dropped into it. Some families have been there and living the gangster life or the criminal life,
Yes.
like my dad's family.
Yes.
I was parts of my dad's family for their whole lives. Like
Yeah.
it's a career. It's such a melting pot of people, and what a different. Every time I close my computer, we know we're gonna have good talks because I don't need this thing
Yeah.
because we're gonna talk.
Yeah.
Man, it's just to from there all the way to Duke. Like really, sports had to be something. Like what? And your mom she's trying to bust her ass to go to school and to
Yeah.
work. And man, like how do you even feel going to school with, like, was your English up to par? Were you speaking French? Like, what was it like? That must have just been so overwhelming for all of you guys.
Yeah, it was definitely like my life journey was it's like a whirlwind, right? It was just two different worlds, right? Bloomfield projects and Duke are two opposite ends of the
Yeah,
spectrum. And some of the things that like some of my college teammates would complain about, I would kind of look at them like, man, I'm eating all the time here, man. Like, are you good? Like, this is not a problem. Like, we got, like, this is the life. And for them, they just couldn't understand. And I think when you come as a refugee and you understand the opportunity that your parents sacrificed for to give you freedom and give you, like, an opportunity to be something, right? Because they were kind of stripped of that opportunity, right? Think about if I'm working right now and I have to relocate my whole family to another country where I don't know the language and I have to restart. I don't have the same opportunity that my son
Like,
will
people
have.
won't even go on vacation and do that.
Yes.
Like, they go to a resort where everybody can speak English. They won't even go across the street where nobody speaks their language.
Yes,
like,
exactly.
That's crazy.
It's
Now you're going to
crazy.
go live like that.
And you got to live and you got to assimilate and you got to strive. And then you got to teach those life lessons to your kid, right? And so I was always grateful. I never really my mom was, from Rwanda, but she came here at a young age. She saw a lot of death or experienced a lot of death in her life. But a lot of the friends that I came up with, I always had a good sense of myself. I knew what I wouldn't do. A lot of my friends that were like, I'm talking about since we were young kids, going to college community center breakfasts on Sundays, going to the stag together, started living a life that I wasn't about. And I always understood the magnitude of what my mom did for us. Getting us out of Rwanda and having that opportunity, I always knew how important that was for us. So that made me not really succumb to peer pressure, if that makes sense.
Right.
I know, like, I don't want to drop any names.
No, I was going to say, you and I could probably go back
Yeah.
and forth with so many. I mean, I played at AKO there for 4 years.
Yes.
In its heyday in the late 90s.
Mm-hmm.
But it was also, that's where everybody went who couldn't get to university, right?
Yes.
I mean, I was going to college. That's why I was there. But there was, guys there from some of the schools and some of the friends that we could drop names about. And then when I then coached there for the next 7 years, and it was becoming so difficult to be at the same time a cop and a coach, because it was like, man, I know this guy is dealing guns and we're gonna hit his door.
Yes.
And but it also gave me a special relationship with a lot of people and their parents, because like once you got into those families trusted you could at least we could have phone calls where it's like, hey, I need you to come and pick up, let's just say Bob.
Yes.
Bob's in trouble again, or I'd call and say, hey, Mrs. Jones, it's Tony, from
Yeah.
football. Bob's in trouble. Can we come get him? I don't
Yes.
want to. So we wouldn't have that conflict. It was
Yes.
just the constant conflict between the communities of, in the West End, and the police was such a uncomfortable situation for me. And I'm sure,
Yeah.
to your ears, very uncomfortable
Yeah,
for them
yeah.
looking at me, man.
And exactly. And it was just, the inner city and the relationship with police officers was always very difficult, especially the Bloomfield, St. Joseph area, Wells area, because it almost felt like the guys that grew up there felt like living a life of crime was the best life they can live.
Right.
They felt like they were pushed to live that life, that their dad, their mom, their uncle, this is what we know. Like, I want nice things. I want to be noticed. I want to have nice clothes. I want to have some value, even though my life is messed up at home. And I knew, like, one of my best friends got murdered downtown at Palisher, Mo Yusuf. I know other guys that were, heavy into the game, that we were friends since we were little kids, but they having these conversations, I knew the psychology behind why they were doing it. Like, they felt like, I can't be anything else. I'm not going to go work at Tim Hortons for the rest of my life. I'm not going to go work at McDonald's. Whereas for me, the difference in, first of all, I had sports, I had great coaches, but I also knew the magnitude and the sacrifice my mom did. She would work hard. She wouldn't, like, we were on welfare for the first couple of years, but then she stopped. She's like, I can get a job.
It's amazing.
And that value of hard work and earning your keep, even if it's not a lot, having pride of what you earn, that allowed me to know and my sister to know, like, this is not an option. Yes, to me, it would have been easier to sell drugs than go to the route. It would have been easier to peddle guns because it was that, that accessible. I know the guys that had it. I know the guys that had it for a better price. Just because you're around those neighborhoods, you hear the conversations. But I also knew that my mom didn't take us from Rwanda for me to be here to be a nuisance to her, right? Like, she gave us an opportunity. All my, get a little deeper, all my fallen, like, cousins and family members, like, would die for this opportunity. So how selfish would I be to not make use of what I had? And, even though if it wasn't cool, I was made fun of sometimes, but not like, just like guys cracking jokes like, man, you don't want this money, like, it's like, no, I'm gonna get more going my route. And I always had that vision, right? I always had that reverse engineer. I always was a goal setter, and I saw it from my mother, right? I seen that work ethic firsthand where, yeah, quick money is great, but you understand the foundation of earning something and building it, kind of like this gym for you, like, you understand the grind. So when you understand the grind of something, you're not taking any shortcuts, right? So, and that's how I felt. Like, I was like, I'm gonna figure it out. I believe, like, we can talk about how I had the vision of getting a scholarship, but I believed from a young age that I was gonna get one. And everyone used to be like, 110 pounds, kid. Like, you look like every other kid in this neighborhood. You're not even the fastest kid out there. Like, how are you gonna be the kid? Like, It's like, but in my mind, I just believed it. I had that inner confidence always. And like, to your point, like, I understood the role of policing. I understood the role when they put that sandwich police station there on Sandwich Street. Like, I understood, like, the jail being on the West End right there. Like, but I also understood that guys made a decision, that this is the life I'm gonna live, and I made a decision. And when you grow up with people and you're sure about yourself and you're not doing it for the wrong reasons, they respect that too. And I was respected for the decision I chose, more so than I was ridiculed and made fun of.
Do you think that, like, this is kind of totally off topic, and I don't know if anybody listening to this conversation would understand this except for people who grew up in your neighborhood, maybe some police officers who worked in that neighborhood, so when I came out of SWAT, I had 15, 16 years on. Basically, I could choose where I wanted to work, and I chose the West End, which is busy. But this sounds ridiculous, but West End criminal life in the West End, and the West End was my favorite because I felt like there was actual, like, a respect. There was a different code of ethics there. Whereas if the neighborhood respected you, and I'm not saying, like, respected me in a way, but there was, like, a pecking order in a different way, where if the neighborhood trusted and respected you, I could do my job very effectively. Mm-hmm. And when there was shootings and murders, I could talk to people and we could figure some things out and we could get some people in custody. And, people like your family didn't want their neighborhoods being shot up. And the murder you're talking about, that led us, I was in the Bloomfield projects for, I feel like 2 years after that, seeking out and still getting calls of the man still standing, right? Mm-hmm. And getting calls in there. And man, it was just, I felt that there's a different level of respect for each other and for yourselves that really, the West End was always very proud. I'd say the people who grew up in the West End, very proud of being from the West End and, like, taking care of their own problems in a way. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean sometimes in a bad way, but a lot of times just in a good way of, like, hey, we need to figure this out. And when criminals would post up from other, come down from Toronto, the West End people did not like that, right? It was like, hey, this guy's not even from here. You can't cause crime if you're not even from here, right? That was such a weird dynamic.
Yeah, I mean, it's the inner workings of a community and the culture that is established. Like, we all grew up going to the Stag. So some of the biggest gangsters, so to speak, that were my friends when we were kids, they still know that, we played marbles together. We had sleepovers together. We were, I had the same life. I know their mom, I know their aunts, I know their sisters. We have certain rules because it's a melting pot, right? When I was in the West End, starting from the early 90s to, early 2000s, it was like that 10-year span, it was like there were so many people that were that fell there that were from different countries that had similar backgrounds to Rwanda.
Right.
Somalia, Lebanon, El Salvador. So we all had similar background. We all come from war-torn countries, and or genocide. So we had that commonality, right? So we understood quickly, and the rules are established at a young age. Like, you got a problem with somebody, you fight. You don't have a problem with somebody, you walk. Like, if I hear you talking bad about somebody all the time, and we walk past them, you don't do nothing, like, you're fighting. Like,
and it was kind of, the police kind of felt like that too. You're kind of like, man, like, if I don't stand up to myself and I get kicked off this porch, like, I'm not going to be welcomed back ever.
No, and that
it's really,
that pecking order is established.
I bring a new guy, like a new partner or something. Like, we were talking about working with young Wilson, and you'd walk into a house and nobody would talk, and you're like, can you go wait outside? And my partner's looking at me like, you're actually asking me to leave this house right now? And you're like, yeah. And then you have to be like, hey, listen, he's fine. Like, and then it's like you have a conversation because there's no trust.
No trust.
So, you know, we had this hard conversation right after the all the craziness that went on during COVID with the race riots and the thing that happened in Minnesota. And here's a question for you, because now you and I were the same age. It was me and a woman who it was an awesome conversation, but where it's hard for me as a police officer was going into those neighborhoods is like I feel like I felt like much how you're not you personally, but you as a community felt about the police. Whereas like I felt when I walked in, I was hated. Nobody, without knowing me, just because of my uniform. And granted, I chose to wear that uniform. You don't choose the color of your skin or where you were landed. Like, how is the world ever gonna get past that? Because as a cop, I didn't go to your family's house, and talk to people who were nice and not committing crime and didn't hate me. I went to the same houses, I went to the people that were shooting and the drugs and so to me it became, it was hard. And is it racism? Is it not? Where I'm thinking it's like, if you got bit by a dog, you're tentative around dogs. And where every time I went and it was criminals and you looked how you look, you represent that. And same thing, I think, from that community looking at me and the uniform, it was like, no, those guys are always laying the boots to us or chasing us around or causing us problems. How are you ever going to get past that if you're never able to, like, there's no time to do the community? I don't know, man. Like, do you understand what I'm trying to say there?
I do. I think it's a very difficult question, and it's one is very complicated and very complex. I think one of the things about the inner city is police usually just show up for when something bad happens.
Yeah, that's right? What I mean.
So you're in a classroom and the principal comes only when something bad happens.
Right.
And you're like, you don't really develop a relationship. You don't understand that the principal cares about you in a classroom. So I'm using an analogy here. So in inner cities, like, police there's no relationship forged for somebody helping you out. You leave, like, a lot of these people were placed in these neighborhoods because this is the only place they can afford. Right? It's like Windsor Housing, you're getting subsidized rent, and these are the bad areas. And then you show up not trying to understand why, not trying to develop a relationship. So, do I have the answer? I mean, I don't know if anyone does. If somebody did, it would be worth
right?
lots of money. But I would say the thing that relationship with police, like, I think John Elliott at the Stag, who runs the Stag, he's done a great job in the community, phenomenal job. But he has started to establish that relationship.
Right.
Mahari Hagos, with MH100. Yes.
I coach Mahari. He's been on here. We had a great Mahari and I we just talked to him the other day.
But he has police officers come in and communicate with these guys and develop a relationship and have kids from the West End that aspire to be. Rob Pierce, who's a police officer now, grew up in the West End with me. I've known him since we were young. Now you're not looking at police officers as they. You're looking at them as us. So when you have us problems, you tend to communicate and try to find solutions and try to find a middle ground.
Yeah.
When you're not having that connection, when you have you coming in there when you're pissed, and you never shoot ball with the guys, or you never give scholarship for kids that are doing well, or give them a new facility, or offer them like Mahari offers them new shoes or whatever they do for those kids. for kids in those neighborhoods, then how are they ever going to feel comfortable? How are they ever going to feel like this world or this society is made for me? Because when you're in the margins of society, like I said, people felt like this was the best option. If your best option was to live the life of your uncles, the criminal aspect, not like your dad's life,
Right.
you might have followed that path. It's human nature. It's humanity. Like, people are going to do what's best for them. But it's like, when you provide them education and connection and understanding, it's like, you don't want to be there knocking down doors and grabbing your family member out.
Right.
I know this is your family member, but if you've established that relationship, that's why you can tell a younger cop, hey, you gotta, this is because they've learned to trust you about certain things, and you've learned to trust them about certain things, and that connection allows maybe that line to be closer. I don't know if it'll ever be fixed,
sure.
because it's a very difficult. Like, people innately are upset when others have power over them. Police officers,
Right.
generally have tons of
Yeah,
power,
the
and
second
there's
you put
bad
that-
cops, right?
Of course there are.
Yeah, and there's guys that come in and don't care, and
there's the problem in policing too, I think, is like one, sports I think helped me with that.
Yes.
That gap, because I knew, like, okay, like, you know, yeah, Chris went to Herman and he grew up in the Bloomfield projects, and I actually went there before practice and had dinner. Like, you know, like, there was those cases, right? You felt different, and, you know, coaching then again bridged that. It helped me to, like, every encounter with the black community was not through policing.
Yes.
Is what I'm trying to say.
yes,
And so I'm saying, like, if every time these guys who grew up like me, maybe didn't play sports and didn't have that connection, now every single time they see a black face, it's when they're, you know, in some kind of high stress. Yeah, they're gonna be jumpy. And if policing, if they're so freaking busy that's the only situation, you're never gonna have that connection from the other, let's call it the other side of that
Yes.
of that street on Bloomfield.
Yes.
The police and that community. Like, how, man, it's just such a big problem, and I just don't. I think people think it's like the cops are racist, or, you know, the blacks are criminals. Like, that's why how people just want to paint that picture.
Yes.
But I'm like, it is so much more complicated than that.
Yes.
And as a cop, man, I don't have hundreds of years. It's not even 60 years, hundreds of years of this fucking problem.
Yes.
How are we gonna come in 8 minutes and figure it out and not
Yes.
and
and
not hate each other, me and
it's-
you, man? Like,
yeah.
how are we gonna not do that?
And it's difficult from the policing
Crazy.
end that as well. But when you look at it from a humanity side,
Yeah.
and you look at what somebody has been through,
Empathy, that's
how
what
can you
misses.
how can you have the empathy to resonate and also enforce the law and also develop the law potentially where it's more conducive to the people
Yes.
of that area. Like,
I agree.
certain, you know, in the U.S., I'll use the U.S., like, there's certain crimes that are kind of were put against black people, right? Put to keep them at a certain level, you know, like cocaine and crack, and
Right.
and it's just these when people, like I said, when people feel marginalized, they revolt, right? They act out. They're not. There's no. You're not doing this for us. You're trying to put us. You're trying to enslave us. There's many black people that feel that policing is another way of enslaving black people, right? And then this is the U.S. more so than Canada.
Right.
But even in those neighborhoods, like, when you don't have many options, when you're not presenting them with many options or educating them, then you give people the reason to form their own conversations.
Yeah.
I don't know what a good cop. I didn't know a good cop when I was a kid. I definitely know a cop that looked like me, that had my skin color.
Yeah.
So why would I, or that came around and said, "Hey man, what are you guys up to?" Like that. I never. And obviously Ren. Later, when I got I told, like, when I got a little bit older, I started to know Ren, which it was good to see him come in our church and saying, "Hey, we're trying to get new, people of color and diversity in the police force. Like, please come out if you want to be a police officer." It's like, yeah. Guess what? We got closer to Ren.
Right.
Jamie and Jetta Nelson now, like other people, and when that community grows, it also grows the view on policing.
I love Jamie.
Yeah, great dude. And it grows
Eddie Armstrong. Eddie Armstrong's way up there. Do you know Eddie?
Yeah, I know Eddie. I know of Eddie. I don't know him personally, but I'm just saying all these barriers are being broken
I think so,
down
man.
because of that.
I think
and,
so.
And it's only going to continue when people are educated. Me and Jimmy have this conversation where he's a teacher and he's been a teacher for 30 years, Coach Jimmy McDougal, and I say, how many teachers have had a drink or dinner in a black household? And I asked him, like, how many? And he would say, very small.
Yeah,
very, very few.
Like in
so
Windsor,
think about it.
right?
You're teaching these kids,
Yeah.
and you never even try to find that common ground of trying to understand them from their perspective. So it's like you're going to judge them and have certain preconceived notions without knowing them. And this is, and I'm framing that in a way where, like, how many police officers have known the inner workings of the West End, have tried to establish relationships with community leaders, because there are people that are trying to do better, right? So so it's like, how many of those conversations have been had, not just about, Joe Blow in House 6 in Bloomfield is going back to jail because this is fifth offense. It's like that is job, but how do you get better? How do you make sure his kids or his nieces and nephews don't have the same outcome as he did?
I think they got to figure out a way to like roll cops out a little bit more, because we said empathy is one of the most important parts of that thing. When you're doing, I don't know, 10,000 calls, that's a lot of calls, obviously.
Yes.
If you're doing, say, 20 calls a day, which was a normal workload for me in the West End, you're doing 20 calls a day, you really lose empathy. Like, it's everywhere you go. It's violence. It's the negativity. It's the hate. It's very hard to maintain empathy. And I can remember certain points in my career where you're like, man, like, why didn't that even bother me? What's wrong with me? Like, how could that not bother me for me to see that, or to do this, or to, like, like, you're literally holding somebody down and there's people yelling at you, and you're just like, this is your everyday life, and you're not like, I'm not mad, I'm not sad, I'm not scared. It's like, it's such a it's just like, man, this is my job, man. I'm gonna go back in, I'm gonna do the next one. I think like that's from, I guess, my experience or my side of some of these things. Not my side, I don't want to say choosing sides, but my perspective, or how I think we could close that gap more, is to give the police officers more opportunity to rest, I guess, or like to actually stay and talk. You can't stay and talk. You can't talk to a community leader because your radio is going off because there's 24 calls more waiting in your area or in the neighboring district. And it's like, man, there's nothing. It's just like a blitz every time you're in. So there's a long way to go, man. But I think people got to talk like this.
But yeah,
and be honest with each other.
And I'll ask you, like, as a former police officer, how many times have you ever sat down with the leaders of those communities, right? So Glengarry, you sit down with MH, you hear their side of the story. What is the things that we can do to help?
Man, I'll tell you something terrible, and that's a conversation. This might maybe sound bad, but Somalian community there was a very big problem with guns and drugs, and you know that.
Yes.
I don't know that I'd ever talked to a Somalian person who wasn't in that, like, in that world, which obviously there are. Not every other, but like, to me there wasn't, because I, like, every day nonstop for after that murder in particular, all it was the worst. But man, and then something happened, and I went to the Somalian community center, not because I sought it out and I wasn't being a good person and going there myself. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, I'm sitting with all these nice people and they're Somalian. It was like, you come to this realization, you're like, man, all I see, or all I was letting myself see maybe, was the negative side, or the bad seed, the 1% of that community that is bad. Yes. And man, so no, the answer is no. Yeah. Right? And it's sad. And it makes me, like, looking back, I'm like, is there more I could have done? Yeah, for sure there was.
Yeah, and I guess to your question, I'll ask you a question, is like, do you think throwing people in jail has the best long-term solution for society? Like, not even about the person. And I'm saying that to say, like, if you can get ahead of it, if you can if you can talk to people, talk to the kids in that community at 5, 6, 10 years old.
100%. What Mahari is doing, what some other people, what Elliott's are doing, the Stag, what they were doing at the Stag 30 years ago. Let's not ignore that there was people trying, man, 30 years ago. Yes. But yes, I will tell you, as a cop, jail has no effect, like, from what I've seen, because if I pulled every report I probably did 2,000 gun and drug raids in my career. Mm-hmm. And almost every single one of them starts with, I know this person, let's say I know Chris from past similar operations, which means that Chris has been arrested before. Mm-hmm. He has been raided before. We've taken his guns, his money, his drugs. We put him in jail, and nothing happened because Chris is back doing this again. And that's just me as one cop knowing that if you took all 400 cops, probably, or 500 every single time, and not every single time, but most times it's somebody who's already been in jail. So proving to me that jail, or what is it, recidivism, your rate at which you go back to jail,
Correct,
really has no bearing. And they said, I think nothing in the world, even like in the States, why am I drawing a blank here? Like death sentence doesn't affect the recidivism. The only thing that ever did was corporal punishment. I don't think we should bring that back.
No.
Right? Like, I don't know, man. Yeah. So no, I think the only spot is like,
before
me and you years ago.
Yes.
Like
Get
whatever.
together. And
like, hey, as kids, you're going to be a cop, and you're going to grow up in Bluefield, we're going to hang out. Like, I don't know.
And I think football, I mean, was the commonality.
Football is a big one.
Because it's a
sports.
Sports in general breaks barriers, right? Now you're able to kind of be around people that are different than you but have a similar goal, and that commonality kind of encourages empathy, encourages you to see somebody in a different light, see him as a part of your team rather than as an opponent. And I think when policing, that's in those communities become, we call the police because we trust the police. We don't call the police because these people come in to solve our problems or to punish us. Right. It's like we trust them to clean up our neighborhoods. Right? Because if you ask most parents in those areas, they would say, like, no one wants to be around crime or around guns and violence.
No,
for other kids, even if they know one of their, but it's like their voices are never heard, really.
Even guys I played ball with, they still call and they're like, hey, I don't want my kid to turn out like I did. Guys that I know and I've arrested or gone and picked up so they could be arrested without any violence.
Yes.
Like those guys are still calling. No, they don't want that, even though they live that life. They don't want their kid to do that.
No.
Man, so anyway, I guess we've solved police and race. We're not even fucking drinking, man. We're solving these issues.
I mean, policing in the West End is a huge topic, and it's. I'm happy that you brought it up because I know a lot of people that have a disgruntled relationship with the police, and you being a former police officer, me being somebody from the West End, but understanding it from a different perspective, right? Obviously, never being arrested or being in the criminal system, but seeing so many people around me talk so bad about them, and it's like there's times when I viewed policing as like, is this the best way we can do this? And it's like, obviously, people were trying to do their jobs, but at the same time, there was a gap there that we talked about. So.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So now let's talk about you and your vision to leave the Bloomfield Projects and, you said go to Duke, like wherever I'm sure you did. Did you pick Duke out like from like day one?
No, I did pick Duke out from day one. So I used to go to St. Denis Center, sneak in, play basketball. They allowed us to sneak in back then, so it wasn't an offense. But I went there around the Christmas time, and there was the University of Windsor basketball tournament, and I was in grade 7, and I was watching basketball games there because they were playing on center court, and I seen a silver fox, white hair guy, and it was Harry Lumley. And
Harry,
he calls me over.
Silver fox.
Yeah, he calls me over and he says, "Hey Chris, how you doing?" I'm like, who is this guy? Like I've never met him before. I walk over. I said, "How do you know me, sir?" And he's just being polite. He's like, "I know you play basketball. I seen you play at like Bellwood, and that's the school I was going to at the time. And I know you're a good athlete in the city." And he's like, he points over on the court. Herman was playing St. Anne's, and it was O.J. Otagwe.
Yeah.
And he's like, that guy over there, he's getting a full ride scholarship to Stanford University. I was in grade 7. Didn't know where Stanford was, right? But I knew it was a big deal. I knew that much, right? But I was like, what? He looked like me, much bigger, obviously, but same skin complexion, and playing basketball, which I love to play. I haven't played football yet. Harry Lumley tells me, if you continue on your path, if you listen and do the right things, you can get a scholarship as well. That's it. Never said anything else to me. Didn't call me. Didn't come to my house. That seed was planted in my head. So I run home. I tell my mom, I'm getting a scholarship. Well, I'm telling you right now, I'm getting a scholarship. She's like, okay, kid, make your bed, go to bed. Like, what are you on it? Like, what are you thinking? Like nobody from in that neighborhood had those type of aspirations. But that was kind of the goal, right? And what I did, and I was naturally an academic kid, did well in school, I reverse engineered my path. I was like, if this is the goal, I have 6-7 years to get there. So what do I need to start doing? First, I need to play football. Let's sign up for football next year. Let's start there, right? So I knew I was going to play football next year. And this is before, like, you know, this is 2000. Like, this is 99. Like, this is before, like, internet was like, you can Google, like, what do football players do? And you get, like, a list of things. It's like, now it's just creativity, right? It's you, your mind, your imagination, your work, and, you know, you figuring it out, your journey, right? It's like, now it's like, you got to figure it out. So I figured out what high school OJ went to. He went to Herman. I figured out, you know, that he played football, multiple sports like I did. I already played basketball, and from that time on, I started. Next year, I played football for Windsor Police. Yeah. And played football the whole season, and then, you know, played basketball, travel basketball, played OBAs with, and I was always a good basketball player. I was always fast. So I always had those natural athletic attributes. But then my focus wasn't on football right away. I just knew I was going to get a scholarship. So it wasn't as fine-tuned at that age as it became. So as I started, you know, I went to Herman the following year, French immersion program. I went to Bell, which is French immersion. We talked about our background in French. And my whole process, and the back of my mind when I went to bed, I didn't know I was doing it. Like, it's kind of like now there's all these things and YouTube videos about, like, goal setting and looking at your goal and, like, doing these many push-ups. It's like, I just knew in the back of my mind, I had to do well in school. I had to be a good football player. And, you know, obviously I had to take the SATs and all that stuff in the States. So when I went to Herman, I go to Harry Lumley, say, what do I need to do? What am I doing? Am I on the right path? You know, obviously we had a good and bad relationship. He would be hard on me when I wasn't doing as well, and I didn't want to hear it because I was too young to understand what he was trying to do, how he was trying to push my buttons. But I kept at it, and the consistency of my goal, and like me saying it out loud and me declaring it from a young age, telling people around me, like, I'm getting a scholarship. It's like, why you? Like, what? Like, my mom would ask me, like, why are you? And I'm like, I'm telling you, man, like, I'm gonna get there. Like, you know I have to take steps to get there, but I'm going to get there. And eventually, I started getting recruited. There's a guy named Ron Dias that used to run combines.
Yeah, I went, man.
Yeah, everybody.
I went to those combines. I'm born in '78.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm born in '87. So Ron Dias was doing these combines, and then I went to Ron Dias combine, and I got in a car with Terry Malden, who's my high school quarterback, and Terry's out now, doing well, but he's still one of my really, really good friends, dear friends. So
me and Terry had babies on the same day. I coached Terry forever.
Terry's born 2 days after me. Yeah. So, but me and Terry, he played on my basketball team for Hoopology, so we're still great friends. Anyway, we got in the car, and we went to all the Ron Dias combines. And I'm talking about Hamilton, Toronto, London, and we just hit him. And we're paying $20. We had his girlfriend at the time drive us, and we're just paying. And it's like, no scholarship offers. 0. I'm like, oh my God, this is ridiculous. So going into my last year, I went to Ron Dias camp. It was held somewhere around Toronto area, the GTA. And I signed up for it. And all of these great athletes showed up. So Brian Balke, Von Martin, I played in the NFL. And all these other guys ended up going somewhere from Canada, right? From Quebec and Ontario, some guys from Winnipeg as well. And we all were at this camp. American coaches are coaching us. I get my first offer. It's Delaware State. He was my D coordinator. So I had best DB at the camp, and I'm like, man, it's finally trying to pan out. But I'm like, Delaware State's not necessarily, I mean, I'm still thankful, but it's not where I think I should go, you know? I'm like, man, I think I can do better. So I play my senior season, and there's one more Ron Dias camp. Finish my season. Harry Lumley's like, you got to go to that camp. So I pull up. I'm like, man, I took my SATs already. I passed my SATs. I got my DVD. First, dating myself. Have my DVD in my hand with my highlight videos that I made in the computer lab.
From one angle.
The back end. I have my half of my game at the end. Like, I took the time, the blood, sweat, and tears since that vision in grade 7. So now it's like the moment of truth, right? I show up to this, and I'm not going to run. I'm like, I ran my 40 so many times. Like, these coaches know me. Like, now I'm just giving up my tape. I'm telling them I'm eligible, have my transcripts. Like, I'm ready to go. Coach comes in. Michigan State coach comes in, Illinois coach, and I'm like, oh my, Ron Darcy is like, all these guys are here to see you, man. You did all the work. Now it's, they want to see you run. And I'm like, I don't have nothing to run in. So I'm freaking out. OC, who's Jamie Jello Nelson's really good friend.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah,
there.
I know.
He lends me some shoes to run it. And it's like
What's he doing there?
he was at the University of Windsor jumping.
I'm like, he's a track guy. Okay.
But he gives me some shoes to run it. Like he'd like, hey, here, man. Like I was
Right.
like, wait, I need something to run it. So he lets me use them, and he always gives me. I work in the States. He's a border patrol. He wears like customs. So every time he's like, hey man, when am I gonna get my percentage, man? He always tells me that every time I cross, because he was one of the key reasons at that day that I was able to run. So I ran my 40, and at that combine, I got an offer from everybody there.
What?
And it was mind-blowing. 2 weeks later, I'm at Duke on my official visit. And I went there by myself, and I just, Coach Azanero was the coach at the time. He coached at the NFL for a while and left Duke and went to different places. Played San Francisco, Philadelphia, a whole bunch of NFL squads. But he was the guy that recruited me. And I developed a great relationship with him. And OJ went to Stanford, and I knew my profile as an athlete. I'm a good athlete, but I was also very focused on academics. I got really good grades in school. So that also factored into my decision. And I knew that, like, now it's like, I want to create my own legacy, right? OJ did his, which was phenomenal. Maybe the greatest athlete to come out of Windsor football-wise, one of them. I was like, I got to go create my own. And when I went to Duke, it's funny how life comes full circle. I used to live in North Carolina. That's where we moved to first, from
Right.
Rwanda. So it was kind of those things where it's like, I used to live in Greensboro. It's about 45 minutes away. So it just felt right. And when I went to the other visits, I knew that Duke was kind of the school for me. So after that, I signed the letter of intent, and then ended up going to Duke. And it's funny because now when I look at it, like 10 years have gone by, or 11 years since I moved from North Carolina going back. And it was just like, that was my mainstay for 5 years. And it was a great experience. And I mean, obviously Harry Lumley played an instrumental part. A lot of other people in the community played an instrumental part in like developing me as a person and, coaching me up and developing relationships, teaching me things. I stayed with a family for a bit, for like 6 months that were very instrumental as well. So yeah, it was when I got there, it was an eye opener. It was different than the West End, I tell you that.
Yeah. Yeah.
The people that went there acted very different than the West End. And it's funny because at first I felt a lot more comfortable being around Bloomfield than I did at Duke. It was it was a very unique experience at first because it's who I've become and the type of person I deserve to go there, but it was also very foreign. That type of affluence was very foreign to me.
Right.
But the football aspect, the ACC aspect, even then, like I remember my first year we played at Alabama, and I'm a redshirt, and 6 to 8 months earlier I was, a year ago I was in Windsor Stadium for 300 people, and I'm at Alabama, 100 and some thousand people, and we're on the road, and I'm like, I have my helmet on because I'm not taking my helmet off. I'm enjoying this experience. The crowd is singing "Sweet Home Alabama." It smells like booze, and I'm like fans are heckling, and I'm like, oh my god, like coming down that tunnel and like feeling that and seeing like how big this was, right? Like you obviously always hope to go
Right.
to get a
To
scholarship,
actually do it.
and then like your
And be
body
there.
kind of react to it, right? Get those goosebumps and I didn't play that game. I ended up playing Alabama my senior year, which was a different story. But that experience was like, oh my goodness, this is a huge deal, right?
That's wild, man.
And it kind of, obviously led to some many great memories. Very tough, very challenging. The one thing I would say about Division I football, it's a phenomenal experience, but it's a very, very taxing experience because they soak every minute and every dollar
Yeah.
that they give you to go there.
Yeah.
And that's academically, like your day is planned from 6 a.m. till 10 p.m. And when you have a chance to breathe, you're back on the field. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Hitting, and your body feels like crap. You still got to hit. You're. It really tests how much you love the sport.
Man, that's Luke actually said the same thing about testing how much he loved the sport. And I was close with Brett Romberg. We played together, and then he went to Miami during the big U days. And
Unbelievable.
also, how wild is it that Little Windsor? I mean, we went to see Brett play every year he was in the NFL. So a little crew of guys from the frat. And we go up, and I'm sitting with Maha and his family. You know, Maha is OJ's older brother.
Yes.
And Maha and I played together.
Yes.
And it's like, these guys are both starting in the NFL on the same team. And that was the year that actually OJ was like all NFL, I think, like all defensive team. And there was like be an article printed here or there in the Star. I'm like, man, this is the craziest. Two people from Windsor playing. They're starting. We're all here. We're sitting friends and family. We didn't even know each other. We're going at the same time. We're like, hey, well, I'm here to see OJ. Oh, I'm here to see Brett. This is amazing. It's wild, man.
It's funny you say that because everyone that's like went D1 or has had that vision and understand how hard it is. It's like when you know. It's a huge deal. Like for us, like Brett Romberg, like for him to be a captain on those Miami teams, arguably the best college football teams ever.
Yeah.
This guy from Bell River to be voted captain, it's like mind blowing. It's mind blowing.
Yeah.
And then OJ, obviously, who was a captain at Stanford as well, but like it's mind blowing that he comes from this small area in Canada where football is not even, we play a different brand of football, but it's like those two guys end up on the field at the same time. It's one in a billion.
An NFL game, yeah.
And
even
I understand. I'm getting
Crawford playing against Luke like that. Last year was like and he hit. You see Crawford like actually, I think he tackled Luke and picks him up and I'm like, this is fucking awesome, man. But you said that thing that kind of resonated with me because I remember Crawford was doing his little speech at that university, the Windsor Stadium fundraiser, and he said he put out his videotapes and like they all wanted to.
Yes.
He actually had probably real tapes on, like you and I, like with DVDs, like he probably had digital.
Yeah.
But he's like, hey, everybody, all his teammates were at Boise, were pulling up their tapes.
Yes.
And he's playing, and there's people in lawn chairs, and there's houses in the background of the field he's playing on, as he's running for a touchdown. They're like, where the fuck is this?
Yeah.
And they're playing like in Texas, like, at their high school, and there's like all these fans,
Listen,
right?
man,
he's playing behind Forrester, like running by the...
Or go to Villanova and like, like 10 people at the games, and it's funny. So Tyrone played with me on that Windsor police team.
Okay.
So it's mind blowing for that experience where Tyrone was my teammate, and then I see him in the NFL. I'm like, what the heck? Like this is, I mean, he's obviously another. Great,
amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing. I played against Luke in high school, and it's like, the small community, the football community, and the guys that have done it. Like I have tremendous respect and for all those guys and how far they've done it and how great they've done. And these guys didn't do just okay. Like Brett Romberg was a captain. He won the Remington for the best center in college football. Like OJ was all academic guy as well. Like
Crazy.
what I mean? NFL draft pick Tyrone obviously was a team captain for the
of the Cowboys.
Luke Wilson is like fan loved, like the most loved Seahawk potentially after Marshawn Lynch, or maybe he's on par with him. Like he was the guy, he was the energy, he was the glue guy.
So let me ask you this about your family. So your mom, she comes from Rwanda, goes through all this stuff, works her ass off to not be on welfare and to put herself through school. Now you end up at Duke. Like, did she understand like how big this is? Like how big the college football, did they know what you like? Were they good for you? Yeah, you're going to school. Like was it like oh my God, you're going to Duke? Like how was that?
Yeah, so it's a great question. My mom, and this is I probably speak to for most refugee or foreign parent household, she had no clue how important football was and how big it was. And
she thought it was soccer.
So when I told her I was getting a scholarship, she couldn't understand how it didn't make sense to her how sports can pay for your education. Right? She didn't know what the tuition was at Duke. She was
what was the tuition at
$55,000 a year, like
US.
Yeah, USD, and it was like they're paying for all of it plus room and board and everything, right?
Food.
Yeah, and my mom came to one game. She never really watched me play sports because she didn't understand it. She came to one game. It was my last game. And my mom passed away in 2012. God rest her soul.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it's okay. But she came to one game, and I was a team captain, and it was my senior day. And she's in front of this huge stadium. She's seeing these huge guys. They're all coming up to her and saying hello. And my name's called last. I'm the team captain. She couldn't understand it. Then somebody from her job Googled me and said, look, this is your son. And the Google aspect was when she finally understood the magnitude of like, my son's on Google. Like, this is it, and it's funny because it's like culture difference, the difference in just understanding how something was so much like it changed my life. Like going to Duke catapult me to a different. Like I talk to people all the time. I would be a different person if I didn't go to Duke. Like that's how people that go to Duke understand. Like the people that like everybody has to stay on campus. You really learn from each other, and you develop this like sense of community, and it's just a great school for many reasons. But for me, like me telling my mom this, and now her finally understanding, like 40,000 people, 50,000 people in the stands. She's now seeing me coming out as a team captain. I'm not a big guy, right? So it's not. She's seeing old linemen that are like, you're the cat. Like in her mind, she's like, they're bigger than you, and I'm like, yes, mom. Yeah. But that's not how it works. You know what I'm saying? It's like they selected me, and it's like that kind of, you know, she teared her up, made her understand a great sense of pride, but also understanding how like how different things can change. And my sister was trying to tell her, like, Mom, I'm telling you, like she used to come to my high school games, but like these high school games are packed. My mom's like, really? Like, sure? Like, but it's like when she saw it firsthand, saw the size of the stadium. And you know, but from playing football, it's like when you're on the field and you look up, it looks like, oh my God, you know what I mean? It's a different experience. So she was on the field and she was like, you don't hurt yourself? Like, how does it? Like, it all came together. And obviously, I graduated from Duke. I was extremely grateful to do that, and that made her so proud because she understood that as academics as was her main focus, I was able to use that football aspect to pay for my academics, to get these degrees, and to have opportunities that she never had. But you know, I always used to tell her, like, your sacrifice is the reason. It was the catapult for us to get these opportunities, right? So
what an incredible story, man. What an incredible story. Like, as you're telling the story, I just keep picturing like being in one of those Bloomfield units I was in all the time. Like, I could draw out the units, right? Like,
yes.
You know, and
the immaculate floor plan that they had.
Seeing, exactly. Like, why did you put the stairs there?
Yeah,
man?
right there, right when you walk into your right. Yeah.
Why are the stairs there? But and you know, seeing the typical very quiet African mother that, you know, I encountered on so many different calls, and I know that everybody's the same, but they're very quiet and so like so polite. Like the African community in the West End, and my wife was a cop too before, and she tells a funny story. Her job was, when she was pregnant, was to get old warrants that were like, you know, like, do we need to keep this warrant? This guy's been wanted for 30 years.
Yes.
And she said she had to call, is it Burundi?
Yes.
And so she calls it, she's like, never heard of this country. She Googles, she calls.
Right, neighboring country of Rwanda. Actually.
And I forget how she gets on the line with somebody who's from this country that just happens to live in Windsor. And they're like, oh, yeah, Chris, we'll see if we can find him. Yes. And she's like, they know, like, just know everybody in the community, and so polite and like always welcoming. It's just, that's funny to see. And then to see this woman now walk into that stadium, and your like face is on the scoreboard, probably, right? Like it's like
she see me on buses. And she couldn't and you know this, and you talk about the little marketability that we have in Windsor for great athletes or athletes that do well. And we talked about a UFC fighter earlier before we got on air, but also just all the people like the Romberg OJ thing, right? How little media attention that got, and it's a huge deal in the States. They make everything a huge deal.
Yes.
And that's the thing that like they
here only 16. We wear the jersey, the number of a 16-year-old hockey player. Just so you know, guys, put in this perspective.
Yes, exactly. It's like, and like for us football guys, it's like, you know, we go 45 minutes away to Michigan. We know how huge that stadium is and how important, how big that is. So for her, it was like when she started to see it, right now, not just the, you know, little clippings in the Windsor Star of like how many touchdowns X, Y, and Herman won by 3 points or whatever. It's like, it's now like the magnitude of that made her realize, like, oh my God, like this kid has been working, he's been talking about this for so long, he's living it, but it catapults him to a different area in his life. You know what I'm saying?
And you said so many things that I think like any listener can take away from, you know, just to kind of recap a little bit, is like you reversed. You set. I talked about this today actually on the thing. Manifestation of the goal and the work between them is a lot. And a lot of people do the manifestation then no action because they don't plan out the steps. So really, like, reversing that is huge. Seeking out, like, I always say to my kids, like, don't want to be like anybody else. But even if you're coming to the gym, even if you're somebody who comes to the gym and you're overweight, don't like look at the person who's ripped and be jealous or want to be like them. Find out how they got like that. If that's how you want to look or be. And you did that with OJ, and then seeking out the mentorship from Harry.
Yes.
And you know, I have a great relationship with Harry. And I love Harry.
Yes.
But the guy, like, people that talk about football and they're like, oh, you know, he pulls all these players from all over the place to play at Herman.
Yes.
Like, fucking, who cares about the 24 city championships? Like, that's outstanding, obviously. Good for Harry for that. But, like, how many kids did he help? Man, like, by going and making sure they got to practice. And, like, where would some of these guys have been if Harry didn't go and badger them to get them to show up?
Yeah, and more importantly, like, I think the one thing about, and you know this from serving in the community and being a police officer and going in the West End, very few people care about those kids. When I was this grade 7 kid, a skinny kid, very few people saw that vision of myself.
Saw that potential.
That potential and that vision of what I can become. When you go to Mahari's gym or you go to Stag, you see these kids, very few people see potential there. Harry's one of the few people that saw potential. So when people rip him or say, like, whatever, it's like, first of all, I never went to Harry's house till I was in my 30s. He never called me to come to my house, or he never came to my house. He just gave me a vision and he believed in me. And you know this from just being an athlete, and you will remember the coaches that believe in you.
Absolutely.
How many people didn't believe in you? Many. When you started in the gym and somebody said, oh, yeah, right, you're going to do what? You're going to stop policing and do what? Like, that belief is the foundation. And after knowing Harry's story, him growing up very tough, him understanding, that empathy was there. We were able to connect. That's why he's able to win and has the loyalty of all of his former players, because he believed in us. He took me to Kentucky versus Georgia when I was in grade 10. And he got me an unofficial visit, and I was on the field. His son, Dan Lumley, who's a really good friend of mine, one of my really good friends now, was playing there. He brought us, me, Terry Malden, Mike Getve. Mike Getve didn't go to Herman. Mike Getve wasn't inner city. He went to Sandwich, but he wasn't an inner city kid. He brought us down there. And he was trying to, because we were in grade 10 at the time, me and Terry are the same age, he was really trying to promote Mike Getve. He's like, man, you got to take this guy. He's a kid from Windsor. He's a phenomenal kid. He ends up obviously going to Michigan State. But he was trying to push Kentucky to get him. He was helping Mike Getve. Mike Getve didn't go there. He got us a hotel room. He paid for our food. Who's doing that now? Who's taking other kids to unofficial visits? They're not their own. And caring for them in that way. And so when people criticize, it's like, how many people really cared about the kids and went that far to not only say, I believe in you, but to also take them. Us being on that field, Kentucky versus Georgia, in front of 70,000 people, it makes you touch your dream. It makes you feel your dream. Now it's like, okay, I'm on the right path. Like, I have to get that. So when you're, if you're thinking about doing something stupid, now you're like, look, I got to get back on track. It's right there. You know what I mean? It's like, I got 3 more years. Like, I got to pedal faster. But it's like, now being an adult, having a kid, and paying for stuff, who's paying for all this? That's money out of his own pocket. No one's giving him money to do that. That's his own money out of his own pocket. And he never brings it up. He never says, remember that time when I took...
he does not. I have had so many conversations with Harry over the years, and he never talks about any of that. All he does is talk about with beaming pride, the success. He doesn't even talk about his own success as the head coach, like his records and stuff. You have to pull that out of him.
Yes.
What he talks about, his success is the success of guys like you.
Yes.
Like, his success is, he talks about the players.
Yes.
And where they come, and not just the guys who played in, like, the CFL like you or got scholarship. He talks about, like, he's like, oh, hey, Tony, you remember, so-and-so?
Yes.
He's managing at the, he's like equally proud of that, man. Like, and good on him, man. And but everybody like hears the negative and the few people. But I think you're a lot like me. Like, we talked about leaving the police for the thing. I am zero motivated by the haters, the people that said that I couldn't. I am totally motivated by the people that believed in me and the people like what you, like, I said my goals to. I will do this. And I think that's a huge, huge aspect in success, is telling people out loud that you respect.
Yes.
Hey, Chris, I will do this. I will, get this scholarship.
Yes.
I love that, man. This is like super. Hey, Herb's pumped over there. Yeah, Herb's like ready to go to basketball. Get these kids like going tonight. So, man, I am so appreciative of you coming on here today, and your story is outstanding. And for sure, we got to get Jimmy back in this one, and we can like go all in. And we got a little bit deep there, and love your honesty, and I appreciate you listening to my side of things or the police side of things, and with empathy and with like actual like conversations instead of like the battling doesn't have to happen, man. I feel like.
I guess the million dollar question before we go.
Oh, here we go. He'll bring it.
Why did you decide to leave? And you said your wife. You mentioned your wife as well.
Yeah.
Why did you, maybe separate or the same? But why did you guys decide to leave policing to run a gym and do something unconventional? And probably had a lot of people saying, "Are you nuts?" Because
yes, man.
A lot of people think policing is one of the great jobs
in a while,
in the city.
I still think I'm nuts. I look at my bank account. But my wife's was a family decision. It was like a, I think I can't speak for her, but she said on this podcast a million times, and to me is like life changed when she became a mother, and it just she didn't feel like going out and doing some of those things. It was she wanted to be home with my sons and the lifestyle of the police officer that you have to work nights and you got to do these things, and the opportunity presented itself. We're lucky that the gym was doing well and she left. For me, it's huge. It's such a big long story and it'd be hard to completely the things I saw and did bothered me. The way I felt inside, like you said something during yours, and I don't want to, that's not the one-upper thing. It's like, but I can relate to what you said. You said you felt less comfortable with the affluent. I was starting to feel more comfortable in like a dirty bar where I was worried people, where people, criminals would be. Like I felt more comfortable in the criminal element and in probably the Bloomfield projects in my uniform than I did going to parties and being around people that, that didn't want to fight me it was weird. It was I think it's a very full, very, very long story of why or when maybe I don't even know it myself, but at the end of the day, the passion was gone. I had done everything I wanted to do there and I wasn't very happy. I didn't feel like I was making a difference anymore, to be honest with you. It was one of the biggest. Wow. Yeah. I think people need that. You need that reward. You need that. It doesn't have to be like an award from the city. It's just to see somebody. You said about the recidivism. Yes. To just make a difference, like arrest somebody for murder and feel like you did something good. Yeah. Instead of feeling like you're like violated their rights or whatever else it was. Like, you felt like you did a lot of great things, but it didn't feel like you were doing great things, I guess.
That makes sense.
That makes sense? Yeah. Yeah, so here we are. And I mean, that's why I go in and talk to so many police officers now, is because I don't want them to become like me. Like where you feel like you've got nowhere else to go but another, like, because most don't have another or aren't willing to risk the salary to do this or don't have the opportunity to do this. So what's going to happen? You're either going to hate your job. If you hate your job, you're going to take it out on the people you're dealing with. Yes. Right? You're going to, take it out on your family. You're going to take it out on everything else. Or the worst is what happens to police officers is, they end their lives or become substance abuse and all these things. Correct. So just saw myself going on one of those avenues and didn't want it to happen. So it doesn't matter if I make $10 here. I'm a lot happier than I was. And the job was great. I wouldn't have any of this if it wasn't for the job. So I do respect that and love the opportunities and relationships I built. But that's it.
It makes sense. That's a
$1 million question.
Yeah, well, I mean,
at least $100,000 question. That's for sure.
I mean, just for you to start this and have this gym, right? So it's always interesting to see why people change courses. Yeah. And all the reasons that you named are obviously very important to you, which all that matters, right? So
yes, it is all that matters.
That's all that matters. So.
And able to, at the end of the day, I think like same with you, like whatever your mission is, you said to make it better, to make, to leave everything better. And mine was to, to help as many people as possible. That's why I think like every new cop gets there to do that. Yes. And it just becomes, you lose sight of it because you're not really doing it. You don't have the opportunity to do it, the time to do it when you're in day-to-day operations. So I think like here, I'm still helping so many people, just in a different way, in a different platform.
And you're happy.
And I'm happy. Yeah,
which is very important.
Smile a lot. The smile's not fake anymore. Right?
That's good.
Yeah, man. So thanks for coming on. I think, man, you were coming back on for sure.
Yeah, no
for
problem. For
sure. And I can't wait. As soon as this mic goes off, we're going to talk about all these people we've been talking, the names we talked about.
Absolutely.
Now's the time to do more and be more.